Good morning, everyone. It's about 20 to 9 here in Arizona, a little later up in parts of Canada and the eastern U.S. This morning, I'd like to share with you Psalm 18, verses 1 to 20, which is one of the suggested psalms for the Thursday of this week of the second Sunday of Easter. So it's Psalm 18, verses 1 to 20. I love you, O Lord, my strength, O Lord, my stronghold, my crag, and my haven. My God, my rock in whom I put my trust, my shield, the horn of my salvation, and my refuge. You are worthy of praise. I will call upon the Lord, and so shall I be saved from my enemies. The breakers of death rolled over me, and the torrents of oblivion made me afraid. The cords of hell entangled me, and the snares of death were set for me. I called upon the Lord in my distress, and cried out to my God for help. He heard my voice from his heavenly dwelling. My cry of anguish came to his ears. The earth reeled and rocked. The roots of the mountains shook. They reeled because of his anger. Smoke rose from his nostrils and a consuming fire out of his mouth. Hot burning coals blazed forth from him. He parted the heavens and came down with a storm cloud under his feet. He mounted on cherubim and flew. He swooped on the wings of the wind. He wrapped darkness about him. He made dark waters and thick clouds his pavilion. From the brightness of his presence through the clouds burst hailstones and coals of fire. The Lord thundered out of heaven. The Most High uttered his voice. He loosed his arrows and scattered them. He hurled thunderbolts and routed them. The beds of the seas were uncovered, and the foundations of the world laid bare. At your battle cry, O Lord, at the blast of the breath of your nostrils. He reached down from on high and grasped me. He drew me out of great waters. He delivered me from my strong enemies and from those who hated me, for they were too mighty for me. They confronted me in the day of my disaster, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out into an open place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. Well, such imagery of God's power, of God who saves us from our enemies. And you know, the image that was part of the verses 8 through 16 almost reminds me of that image of how the people of Israel were saved from the Egyptians as they fled and eventually went through the waters of the Red Sea. I'm not sure if that was what was on the mind of the psalmist at the time of writing Psalm 18, verses 1 to 20, but that's the image that came to me. But what I wanted to share just briefly was the beginning of the psalm, verses 1 to 2. And it talks about, I love you, O Lord, my strength, O Lord, my stronghold, my crag, and my haven. My God, my rock, in whom I put my trust, my shield, the horn of my salvation, and my refuge. You are worthy of praise. You know, have you ever had times in your life where you needed shelter, whether it was spiritual attacks, emotional issues, life issues? You know, this whole image of God who is my stronghold, God who is my haven, you know, a place of refuge and of strength and of healing. What wonderful images, whether it's the time of this pandemic of COVID or any time in our life. There are times we just need to retreat into our little corners to maybe lick our wounds or just to be healed. Allow, you know, the creation itself, going off into a forest area or going for a walk or sitting by water, a lake or a beach, or just anywhere out in the open going down a nice hiking trail, which we have many in this area of the country. But that whole idea of my God as our rock, whom I put my trust. Put up my trust. And that God is worthy of praise. These are powerful images and wonderful images to hold on to. That God provides us strength. God watches over us. God is my stronghold, my refuge. And when we have those moments where we encounter difficulties, it's nice to know that God is there. Even though at times we don't feel God's presence because we are so clouded and occupied in what we're experiencing, God is our stronghold. So today, as we continue our journey through Easter and walk with Jesus as he continues to teach his disciples through his time post-resurrection and pre-ascension, we are reminded that God is our strength and God is our refuge, of whom we put our trust. Have a great week, everyone, and we will see you next Thursday. Nice to see so many people watching this morning, up north and locally here in Arizona. Bye-bye, everyone.